Good evening, everyone. I'll call to order the public hearing on ordinance, 553, regarding the establishment of a budget stabilization fund, and a capital and infrastructure fund. So this is the time for anyone who wishes to speak on this ordinance, and then later in the evening, council will discuss it and possibly vote on it. Anybody here to say anything about that? Okay, well, we'll wait. Sorry, started.
No, yeah, we're good. I'm just gonna mute my meeting unless somebody wants to speak.
To remind council that when you're discussing this, there are, for example, in section 222-3, some percentages that need to be placed in there, so you guys can be thinking about what percentages you want.
Okay, I wasn't clear if we had to place those tonight, or those were to be determined when we prepare the fiscal 27 budget.
No, because it's an ordinance, you're gonna have to do it tonight.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ms. Law.
Yeah, exactly.
The same rules apply, please sign in and then, state your name and tell us what you have to say. You have 3 minutes.
Bill Mattis, I live along East Second Street. I'm not opposed to, having a fund like this. I'd like to see some due diligence on it. I haven't been able to see, or my inquiries haven't come across any, information regarding how this is, gonna happen and who's handling it. My concerns with it, around paying somebody 1%, that's the cost of having somebody manage my money instead of, doing something else with it, such as banking and earning 4%. 1% a year, if you have it in there 10 years, however much money you want to have, $100,000, that's $10,000, money out the window. My understanding from the last meeting, I may have misunderstood. You may have straightened it out already today. My understanding was that this company that we're looking to hire to manage money is also going to be the one of the determining groups who determines what funds to use.
Okay, sir, I'm afraid that there's 2 issues tonight on the agenda that are very close, and this is the other one. The public hearing is on a capital reserve fund and a budget stabilization fund. What you're talking about is the. We still heard what you had to say. Thank you. This is the last call for comments in the public hearing on ordinance 553, which would establish a budget stabilization fund and a capital and infrastructure fund. This is separate from the other item on the agenda to establish the Newcastle Legacy Fund. So if there are any comments on the ordinance, last call, and then we'll start the regular meeting at 7.
That's trying to figure out who's like life. So.
Seeing as we have no comments on the ordinance 553, is there a motion to adjourn the public hearing? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is adjourned. You're still ready, Ms. Weir, right?
Yes, we are recording.
Okay, so we will begin the regular meeting by saying the pledge.
Council President Suzanne Crowder.
Here.
Councilperson Joseph Day.
Here.
Councilperson Andrew Zell.
Here.
Councilperson Norman Zubaka. Councilperson Brian Mataway. Also present, City Administrator Antonina Chantillo, Mayor Valerie Leary, City Treasurer James Wisman, Chief of Police Richard McCabe, City Solicitor Max Walton, and City Building Official Jeff Bergstrom.
Thank you. The first item is the minutes from last month's meeting, the April 8th meeting. Are there any comments or any corrections or additions to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted? Second?
Second.
There, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then we begin the reports with Mr. Wisman.
Thank you, Tom. In case you can't hear me, I've got this microphone. The city has a financial wealth of $11,866,000. $8,962,000 are in unrestricted funds, and $2,900,000 is in the restricted funds. For the month that's just ended, our cash receipts for the month was $515,000, and our monthly expenditures are $655,000. And our expenditures are keeping up with the tracking of the calendar month, so it's 83% of the year is over and 83% of our expenditures have been made. Right now, the total operating budget calls for expenditures of $7,027,000. And we've expended year-to-date $5,213,000. So we have $1,813,000 to be expended, and we do have reserves to cover that if had to. So that if there's any questions, I'll be happy to give you the answers. If not,
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wisman from council? No? Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report subject to audit? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, yeah, report's approved. Ms. Tantillo?
Good evening. This past month has been pretty busy. The work for the Delaware River Trail Study is ongoing. We're continuing to work with JMT, the engineering firm who's working on this project. And we've also begun meeting with stakeholders who would be involved in this project. And we're hoping to have this project continue, and we'll be working on a pre-application for the ORPT grant to allow the feasibility of this work to continue as the year goes on. After the last meeting, the day after the last meeting, the ditch behind the Walgreens was cleaned out by Norfolk Southern, as long awaited by everyone here. The project that is, going to improve the Delaware Street Railroad project, has again been postponed, by Delaware as they wait for Norfolk Southern to provide an updated approval on the work. They are still both remaining committed to completing this project and, have assured us they'll complete this in a timely manner as soon as next year. The floating dock is complete as we previously reported. We're just awaiting a few punch list items, which will soon be completed. The work for the citywide paving contract and the ADI sidewalk contracts are both underway. If you see some markings, give us a call, we'll let you know. But residents in the area of the work should be receiving notification. We are wrapping up the work for the 3 UD projects that have gone on during their spring semester. The undergraduate students who presented a revenue project have conducted their presentation at the end of April, presented their recommendations to council. They did a wonderful job. We also have the MPA student who's working on HR projects, and she will be wrapping up her semester next week and will be sent to me to review with our HR support. We also have the communications undergraduate students who have also just finalized their work and have given us all of their recommendations to be sent to the state to update our website and improve the look and the functionality. Just a reminder that we have the graduate student who will be helping us later in the summer with preparing a long-term capital project and financial planning. And then we are also going to have a summer intern who will help us with various projects. Some more details to come on that at the next meeting. This past month, we submitted for the bond bill request to our state legislators. We've applied for a number of things. So the first prioritized items are the prioritized streets as categorized by our engineer for the streets that are most needed of improvement. This include 7th Street, Shaw Alley, Penn Street, Umbrella Row, Dobbinsville Freeways on one side of the area, Lincoln Avenue, Juniper Street, Joliet Square, Lincoln Street, Arbutus and Meehan Avenues, 11th and 12th Streets, and Vanderbilt Village. We also applied for the work that was going to be conducted under the BRIC grant that we had intentions of applying for. This was to conduct a detailed flood vulnerability study for the entire city along the Delaware River and Bay to focus on coastal and riverine flooding from severe storm events and sea level rise. As you recall from the last meeting, unfortunately, BRIC has been canceled for now. Then it's important that we continue this work. So we will be pursuing other revenue to get this work done. We also applied for a feasibility study for future potential property locations, police department HVAC upgrades, administration building renovations, and streetlight installation in coordination with street repairs to Joliet Square. Changes for which council approved 2 resolutions at the last council meeting have been submitted to the House and the Senate. They are both on agendas tomorrow. That is HB 144, an act to amend the charter of the city of Newcastle relating to property taxes. This would authorize the council to levy taxes on real property at varying rates based upon property classification. And Senate Bill 127, an act to amend the charter of the city of Newcastle relating to rents. This would amend the charter to provide that the council may impose and collect a tax of no more than 5% on the gross rents within the city boundaries. The tax may not apply to rental properties that are directly subsidized by federal, state, or city of Newcastle rental assistance funding. Both, again, are scheduled at the House and Senate committees tomorrow afternoon. As everyone up here knows, the budget season has begun. We've shared our preliminary budget recommendations and tax rate recommendations with council. We'll continue budget meetings on Thursday, May 15th, and we'll have additional meetings in the month of June as we work to finalize the budget. All are encouraged to attend and have their voices heard. Separation Day is fast approaching. Planning continues to be underway. If anyone is interested in participating in the parade or being a vendor, you are encouraged to visit our city website or contact our office to get registered. And this is on June 6th and 7th. That is it for my report. Are there any questions?
I have several questions regarding the budget meeting on Thursday. I mentioned potentially putting an ad on
Yes.
Facebook. Have you placed an
I'm
ad?
gonna put it out tomorrow, yes. But the agenda's been posted and it's been posted as well. Also as part of my report, I would like to invite, thank you, I would like to invite the planning commission chair up, to give her annual report for us. And you should have her report in your packet as well.
My name is Margot Rain. I am the Chair of the Planning Commission for the City of Newcastle. And I have been requested to provide you with some brief information as to what we have been doing this past year. The commission's been busy. We had 6 approvals. We approved 2 lots on Buttonwood for development. We had 1 lot on Gray Street. Crozier Fine Arts plans in addition to their building. 1 Arbutus Drive, 3 lots were approved. We approved the renovations or upgrades to the Markel Trail site. And then there was about 8 lots on 7th Street that were approved as special exception for a religious institution. We also reviewed ordinances from the City Council regarding lot frontage and wetlands, and a proposed moratorium on building large apartment buildings. We are currently in the process of discussing possible changes to the city code regarding short-term rental units. We adopted rules and procedures for the Planning Commission last year. We are requesting some training, some FOIA training for all the commissioners. If any of them have had it, it's been a while, and we have several people who've never had it, so we want to do that this coming year. And we are encouraging anybody who has not taken the classes for the certificate for planning education to sign up and take those classes that are offered by the Biden School at the University of Delaware. Chris Rogers is our professional advisor, and he's the primary contact with attorneys and engineers for projects. We also work closely with Max Walton, the city solicitor, and Antonina, the city manager and her staff. And everybody's been great to work with this past year. I'm so pleased and happy with what we've been able to accomplish and the work we've been able to do together. We do have 1 position open remaining on the Planning Commission, and we are looking, but we are willing to be, careful in the selection of 1 additional person. So if you know somebody who would be a good addition, let the mayor know, please. For 2025-26, our plans are, we are required to provide an update to the 5-year review of the comprehensive plan. And we hope to do that before December and submit a report into the state. So as a group, we are going section by section through the plan to make sure everybody understands it, we've identified some things like statistics that need to be updated that we'll probably try to do now. And then other things that we really feel that we are gonna need to address when it's time to do the 10-year plan. In terms of budget requests, beyond the money needed to cover the FOIA training, and we've had to have a number of meetings here, so we probably need some money for room rentals. The other thing I just want to kind of propose to council is we will need to be doing a full-blown comprehensive plan in 2030. That is a significant cost, and I'm thinking we might want to start putting some money aside, so when we're ready to do that, we'll have the money to cover that. Does anybody have any questions?
2 questions. Do you know how much, is it $50,000 or $100,000? I can't remember what was the last time that we did a comprehensive plan. So we just.
I wasn't there, but the number I had heard was $70,000, so.
Thank you.
So, and that was So by the time we'll probably need at least 100.
My second question is, or regarding the review, the 5-year review. Could you, as part of that review, work with, our city administrator to, at each of the sections of the comprehensive plan, there's like these objectives and goals that we set as a community to say, you know, act on this, act on this. So it'll be kind of great to know out of 40 different goals, we have completed 30, we're in progress on 5, and 5 we haven't started. Like that would kind of also maybe help, not just planning commission, but entire city kind of understand and get a grasp. And I had this conversation with the city administrator in the past, so I think if you guys could connect on that with the commission, and that would be great to know, so that as we come to 2030, we can also reevaluate those goals and, you know, either say, oh, these are too ambitious, or, you know, expand on them.
I think our deadline for submitting that is December, and so probably once we're done with that, I can come back and report what we found with our 5-year review.
I would also like to add the annual report that you do for the state includes items like that.
Okay.
Oh,
And we can share that once that's complete, that's usually around July.
Perfect. So December is a deadline for the 5-year review that you can update.
Any other questions?
I just have one question on, you said at the Bible school, you have some lessons that can be taken by the people on the planning. Is there a cost to this?
It's not much. I think when I took them, they were $20 or $30 a piece.
Is that part of our budget?
Yes. And we've sent people to classes this past year as well.
Okay, I'm assuming nobody else has any other questions because nobody's looking at them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bill, I actually had a couple questions for you.
Sure.
In regards to the report.
Yes.
Thank you for the extensive review. I had 2 projects, one if you could possibly check in with the respective entities
Okay.
on the status. One is the trailhead in regards to the Marco Trail. When Newcastle County came out last fall and said the monies were awarded. I believe a number of months ago, Councilperson Dilly did some research. Thank you for that. But if we can get maybe an update on that.
Yes.
And then also the fishing pier.
Yes.
Dolly Village.
Yeah, I should have an update on that, hopefully at the next.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chief McCabe?
I'll probably give you our annual report, but I know it's kind of last minute, you know, if any questions tonight on it, but, obviously I'm available for questions, whatever we can, then this will be, on our website, shortly, so everybody can take a look at it. If there's no questions on our monthly report, I'm gonna jump right into some of the things we, built this month. To reiterate, as, city administrator talked about, separation day is coming, so we're gonna have some outreach to talk about some of the road closures and parking restrictions that have existed for years. We'll make contact with some of the businesses that get affected, so hopefully there's no issue this year. Primarily, this month, what I want to talk about is a lot of the directed patrol that we've established over the last 4 to 5 weeks. These directed patrols are based primarily on citizens' complaints. Most of them involve traffic violations, speed, here in Wilmington Road, specifically north of Moore's Lane, speed on West 7th Street near Dobbsville, and then stop sign and parking violations in the downtown area, and then quality of life complaints in the Fulton Van Dyke area. So our officers have been directed to patrol those areas and identify those existing complaints. They've done that pretty vigorously with the results that good citation results, warning results, and some outreach stuff. Although there maybe you don't see an increase in overall citations for the month, these are specifically dealing with those calls for service. So there is a significant increase.
So we're hoping that, if we prolong this type of directive control, we may see a reduce in some of the issues with the speed complaints. The parking violations downtown are something we may have to talk about at another day to see if there's enough marking, signage, and stuff like that to be enforced. But for the obvious stuff, where driveways are parked, intersections are blocked, things like that, we obviously have had no issues in enforcing that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions from council for Chief McCabe? Thank you.
Very good.
Oh, I do have, I'm so sorry, I do have a written question, I just. I'm not gonna repeat what I already asked you about this meeting, because you just addressed that, so thank you for that, but I had a question about homeless, population in our city, and I think according to your report, a couple meetings ago, there wasn't a large issue in our city. But I wanted to see, is there anything that you could, because we're in a budget season, so I'm thinking of this as a, is there additional thing in the budget we could add? That you could think that we could add to actively, even more actively patrol the areas to identify neighbors who are homeless, so we can match them to resources, so they can ideally get out of those, unfortunate circumstances. And I know you already do that, but I'm reaching out to see if there's more that we can do as a city.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up, because it does lead me to a state initiative that's about to be proposed that we have some issues with. So, and just to clarify, I said that we had a significant amount or not?
No, not significant, not significant.
Okay.
I think that was my understanding from one of, it wasn't a report, it was just, you followed up on an incident that happened behind Walgreens and that.
Yeah, right. So yeah, there was a death investigation, and it was, right, homeless fellow. So, with our core program, that's our way of trying to link not just homeless, but anybody that suffers from substance abuse issues. But it's specifically important to use that resource for homeless people, because the bottom line is that what the core program does is it links them to whatever service, whatever inequities they have. So if they're identified, if we're called to that location, then we'll get in contact with them, give them this access. One of the things that we're waiting to see how this lands is there is a bill that's, I think it's been filed and maybe scheduled for a committee hearing soon, known as the Homeless Bill of Rights. And this is it's going to be a huge issue with us and our ability to enforce quality of life laws. So while we've worked hard to develop resources for those that are suffering from homelessness, a bill like this would restrict our ability to have access to them. We would be less inclined to make contact with folks that have been identified as homeless in fear of being accused of harassing. And it also causes problems, maybe not in this city, but in other cities where there are large populations of homelessness that are basically in front of businesses, in front of churches, and causing serious quality of life issues. So it's another one of these issues that we found ourselves as law enforcement in the middle of kind of an ideological or philosophical difference. We have to have the ability to address people that are infringing on rights of way, in traffic, and causing quality of life issues. Our response to that is to link them with resources to help them with that. So two things out of this would be, I would, at some point when this bill does drop, we plan to come here and ask for help from the league or from any local or elected officials, talk with their state representatives and about the impact that a bill like that may have. The second part is I would call 911 if somebody sees somebody they think is homeless, and we would respond and address that work. The fear is with the legislation that's pending, there may be a break in that communication, and our ability to interact with them may be restricted a little bit. So it's a good question. Thank you.
So I'm sorry for making this longer, but appreciate your input on this. This is really helpful. And I know it's hard to know motivation behind the sponsor of the bill, but do you know by any chance, is there anything prescribed? Like, is it supposed to be social services or, nonprofit or something? Because it's hard to believe that somebody would introduce a bill that would limit reach out to homeless people, because you know, they already are not even aware of a lot of the research that exists, so, like, can you, or is this just targeted for police?
Well, there's an element of it that deals with the enforcement part. Overall, it basically, it prohibits enforcement of living in your car in a public place, right? So you can imagine beach town, you're having a real issue with that. I could decide that I don't need to spend money and go to a hotel, I'm just I'll be able to live in my car and hope that, right? But it also deals with, some of the inner cities that have, folks living on the sidewalk in front of some of these businesses, which is detracting away from businesses. So there's a coalition that had an issue with this. The motivating factor behind this is the second time this bill's been introduced. But there was a significant component to this that limited our ability to address those issues. And that's really our primary concern. Our goal was never to respond to these calls and handcuffs on people and take them to jail. We created in our city at least an avenue where they have resources, and that's happening all over the state. You know, every agency has their own way of dealing with this. And I'm not suggesting that there's language in the bill that prohibits that, but it monitors, initially, the bill created an oversight committee that actually had the ability to, more or less, that punitive, language in it that said that if somebody complained about us harassing, somebody homeless, that there would be some consequences to that based on a committee that had nothing to do with law enforcement. So we've managed to get a large piece of that out, but you can see that where the genesis of this was is to kind of limit our ability to address that.
Thanks for explaining that, I appreciate it. You got it.
Richard, do you have anything for us tonight?
Nothing there.
All right, thank you. Okay, council communications, we'll start with Mr. Day.
Yeah, just a couple things. I'm happy to announce and see on the agenda the bathroom agreement. Thank you, Ms. Tantillo and Council President on working to get that done. It'd be nice to see it completed and us to be able to utilize the bathroom. I also wanted to congratulate and say thank you for everyone that was part of the May market. It was a beautiful day, beautiful setup. My wife and I went up and bought our plants and flowers. So I think that was a great event, but I also want to say thank you to everybody that, that's part of the farmer's market. It's obviously started again and, it's certainly a good addition to our town. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Zoll?
During the election, I had a food drive. We actually, had 301 pounds. So, thank you for everyone that, delivered, food. I know we had, drive this past Saturday from the food bank, from the post office. From understanding that was very successful. Day in Old Newcastle is Saturday. It's the 100th year. Please come on out. It starts at 10 o'clock. One of the key things that they're having is called the Wheelman. It's I guess it's a heritage American cycling. And they have cyclists that from before 1932 that they're gonna have here that they'll be cycling around in. So it should be pretty cool. Question, the code alert. Street cleaning's upcoming next week. Would we be able to use the code alert on Sunday evening to let everyone know that it's happening?
Yeah.
That would be great, thank you. So Chief just talked about the parking closures. Do we have them on our website for things that are closed, and do we also get that in the weekly by chance?
So the separation day, map is out there that shows the area and the roads that are closed, and that's also on our website.
So it's not just for this, for like all like closures and situations. I know people who live in our town, especially you people who've moved in, they're not aware of when closures happen.
Yeah, as they come up on a case by case basis, we do post them, yeah.
All right. So I know if we can definitely get them on the website and actually maybe even in the weekly, people will be aware. So,
Yeah, where sometimes they're not, you know, so far in advance that we have them a whole week ahead, but we'll be able to do those.
excellent, thank you.
Mr. Zabaka?
Good evening, everybody. First wanted to say, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who celebrate, everybody does. We have a nice weekend celebrating mothers in our lives, so I hope you guys were treated nice and should every day of the week. Oh, sorry, forgot, thank you. I won't repeat, I was just saying happy Mother's Day for short. Yeah, May Market was amazing. I second what Councilperson Day said. We bought the plans, enjoyed the conversations. Now, the goal is not to kill those plants. Or at least plant them and find a home for them, so it's not, my wife Lizzie was telling me weeks before, she's like, please, just promise me you're not gonna buy crap ton of plants like you did last year, that we couldn't do what we, and of course I did, but, I brought my little pulley that kids use as a little stroller, and we, filled that up. But I did want to thank all the volunteers, who, donated their time and plants, and I understand there's other organizations outside of our borders of the city limits who donated, plants and time as well for this. So thank you, everybody, for all the efforts on making not just, but all the events in Newcastle. Amazing. I want to thank our city administrator for pushing the handicap programs. Just this week on West Fifth Street where I live, we had a handicap curb installed on one of the places, and I'm looking forward for that work to continue elsewhere across the city. So that's just exciting to see that we can have a more safer environment for everybody to enjoy. I'm making an update right now on behalf of Encore. One of the neighbors was asking, did I need to come and provide an update? I was happy to take that. So as of today, Encore has raised a little over 1 million for the Battery Park Playground out of 1.2 million that is the goal for this phase 2. They're $70,000 from a shovel-ready stage, so that's exciting. Hopefully that's something that can be closed in soon. And I wanted to not just for Encore, for all the other nonprofits. So recently, Library and Friends created a fundraising effort for the capital project. So I just want to thank everybody for donating their time, donating their books or valuables for people to bid on, and raffle prices, and just generosity of many of our residents and friends for a lot of the things in our city. I wanted to echo what Councilperson Day said about bathroom, playground, and basketball court agreement. I'm looking forward for this to be finalized so that we can reinstate the bathrooms especially, and be able to assume that responsibility. I know that comes with maintenance added to our but I think we can manage the capacity within our city staff. Just wanted to reiterate, be careful driving. I've been reaching out to the chief already myself about speeding and accidents and everything, but just want to remind everybody, let people buy you. It's not that important, right? Just be safe. And the two last things I wanted to say is for the upcoming budget season, I truly hope that you guys are able to find time to attend some of our upcoming budget meetings. There's a lot of different things happening, as you guys are noticing. So just, we're presenting a lot, so please keep coming and asking questions that will help us, identify what we can do as a city to improve the quality of life for everybody. And just wanted to mention for tomorrow, what Antonina mentioned, our property tax and gross rental tax. I'm looking forward to attending that meeting, one of the committee's meeting to speak on behalf of gross rental tax alongside Councilperson Mataway, so that hopefully we can convince some of the folks in Dover to, push these things out. And I believe Council President Souder and Council Member Day, is that correct? He's going to be speaking for the property tax alongside Antonina. So we are going almost entirely, lack of quorum. I think Councilperson Zelt would be there as well. But we're doing our best to make sure we represent the city. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Mr. Mataway.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to add a few updates that I wanted to highlight. May the 24th is Show Off Day at 10 o'clock in the morning at the Delaware City Library. That day will commence a litany of events that will run through Sunday, June the 22nd. We have a number of community events concerning Juneteenth. So please be on the lookout for that information. Secondly, I wanted to highlight that Sunday, June 15th, will be the 101st St. Anthony's Day procession. So please put that on your calendars. Please come out. Please join with our Italian immigrant community that has been so integral into the development of the city of Newcastle. I also wanted to congratulate neighbors Terrence and Skylar Brinko, who recently celebrated their nuptials. And then finally, in furtherance of some of the things that Chief has mentioned and others in regards to speeding, I recently did some research and came across some information that I wanted to share, and I'll be sure to share with Chief, City Administrator, Council, and the Mayor. The Delaware Department of Transportation has an electronic speed safety program. And it seems like Wilmington Road could potentially be an option for that program where they would implement and pay for electronic speed monitoring systems to keep our neighbors and people that traverse through our community safe. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Mataway. And I have a few things. First, I'd like to thank Mary Ann Caven and all the members of the Board of Elections and our poll workers for their work. It's a long day for them, but we had a well-run election. I'd like to also thank all the candidates who were willing to run for office. It takes some courage to put yourself out there. So thank you all. I also want to recognize the passing of a member of our community, retired Colonel Joseph D'Angelo. He passed away on April 17th after a long illness. In addition to his 38 years of service in the Delaware National Guard, he also served the community of Newcastle as a manager and umpire for our Little League, as a volunteer for St. Peter the Apostles Church, and in many roles with the St. Anthony's Club. He was a member of City Council from 1999 to 2005, and a member of the Planning Commission from 2005 to 2018. So as you can see, he had a long period of service to our community. He's survived by his wife Diane and his son Mark, who cared for him at home, and as well as many nieces and nephews. I also want to thank the Newcastle Library Friends for their work, especially President Matt Alexander and Vice President Jennifer Ramsdell. The library will soon have a wonderful, accessible garden space for outdoor programming and providing a pleasant place to read in good weather. With the proceeds of the gala cocktail party held on April 26th, they hit their fundraising goals and now qualify for a $25,000 grant from the Welfare Foundation. So we hope construction will begin this summer. And thanks also to everyone who contributed to that fund and participated in the gala, which was also a really fun event. And finally, I'd like to thank the trustees for returning picnic tables to Battery Park. There have been 3 installed so far, I think, and they plan for 6. Last year, our park was recognized by Delaware Today as the best place in Newcastle County for a picnic. And so now it'll be even better. So thank you, trustees. And business from the mayor.
Thank you. Good evening. I won't repeat everything that our council president, council members have said or echo them regarding May Market, Farmers Market, or Encore or anything else. They said it all, especially council president who, I thank her for the recognition of Mr. D'Angelo. Does anyone remember the Velocipede Museum?
Yes.
Yeah, so when you mentioned the Wheelman exhibit, it brought to mind the Velocipede Museum, which is where Zolly's is now, that was run by Mr. Jim Dempsey. Other than attending some budget meetings and the MST, it was kind of a slow month for me. Last night at the last minute, I had the pleasure of greeting the AJ Meerbald, who stopped here for an overnight down at the dock, and also meeting their new captain, Captain Fern Hoffman, and meeting the people that she was ferrying from the Cape May Point Arts and Sciences Council, that they were going from Cape May Point to Trenton, and they're all scientists aboard the ship. It was very interesting. I met up with them and just had a chat. I have a proclamation tonight on behalf of the Board of Health, who wants to recognize Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas mental health is a critical component of overall health and well-being of every individual, and attention to the mental health of every individual is crucial to having healthy families and a healthy community. And stopping, would you please come forward? The chair of the Board of Health. Thank you. Whereas everyone has times in their lives when they experience stress and difficult situations, and with the prevalence of mental health issues in our country, it is critical for all community members to be aware of mental health conditions and know that there is help to handle the challenges to health and well-being that many of us face. And whereas the most effective way to lessen the burden of mental health issues is prevention, and when effective treatment is provided early, mental health issues can be resolved and individuals can go on to have a full and productive life. And whereas the greatest barrier preventing many individuals from seeking the help they require is the stigma surrounding mental health conditions, and whereas we recognize the importance of highlighting awareness, improving access to care, and supporting the mental health of our citizens through ongoing education efforts and open dialogue so that no one feels that they are alone. And whereas the Newcastle Board of Health has chosen mental health as its focus for the 2025 in order to increase awareness and help develop a supportive community. Now therefore, I, Valerie Leary, by virtue vested in me as mayor of the city of Newcastle, do hereby proclaim May 2025 as Mental Health Awareness Month.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Gallagher, and your whole committee for your work.
Thank you.
Comments from Goodwill, Captain Moore?
We have seen an increase call volume from March and April in reference to the fire and EMS. It's been pretty busy. That's why it's for us to reach close to 200 calls a month. That's pretty busy for us. So there's no rhyme or reason. It's just people are calling out online. In April, we will not see a fire report. We switched over at the beginning of April to a new fire reporting system. So we're fine tuning that and getting that squared away in reference to being able to compile reports so that they're very similar to the system. That way it kind of keeps everything nice and easy to read and flow. For short training at the end of April, staff members as well as volunteers took a 2-day drafting class. This built upon what we did when we drafted from the river, I guess a year and a half ago, when we did that drill. So we just built upon that to fine tune the skills of drafting. Not that we do it very often, but when we do it, we have to do it. We're able to do it, and we're able to provide constant water. You'll see throughout this month, more than likely next month, vehicles in the parking lot that have some cones around it. That's our vehicle rescue. We'll do training on vehicle rescue. So if you're out and about, whether it be daytime or nighttime, it all depends on the crew that's working. Same out. feel free to, stop by, ask what's going on, ask about the tools. One thing that we wanna do, we wanna be transparent and we want everybody to understand why we do stuff. So if you have any questions, go see them out there, stop by, they'll be more than happy to explain. Coincidence that took place, the end of April, we had an electrocution in the utility right away, between, Castle Hills and, Swanwick. An individual was doing some tree work, came in contact with one of the electrical lines, and of course electrocuted. So while we were out to the call, notification was made to Delmarva to shut down that grid, and help to start the mitigation of that incident. When crews got there, they were able to talk to the individual, he was still, able to talk and, explain some stuff to us. We were able to get a ladder truck in, to be able to, pick the person down, and where he was coming to, a local health, went to a local, hospital, and for treatment. So, feeling better. The other incident that took place a couple of days ago was who, came in as a structural fire in San Martin Industrial Park. Crews arrived to find a, compact trash can in the rear of the building, that's attached to the building that was on fire. Crews were able to pull the compactor away. The fire was isolated to the compactor, smoke did get into the building. Crews ventilated the building. And once that was done, crews got back on, so they did the building, everything was compact. And lastly, you may have seen us out for Mother's Day and on Easter weekends, selling flowers. We just want to thank everybody for your continued support. We understand everybody travels for Mother's Day and Easter and you contribute in other ways. But overall, thank you for your continued support. And that concludes my report.
Public comments, the usual rule, go to the podium, sign in, with your full name and address. Use the microphone so that everyone can hear you, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Brenda Graves. Everybody can take a deep breath. Not my usual issue. I received an email from someone in my neighborhood because they know I'm trying to pull it together. It's from a woman named Pam Turner. She said the small wooded area with pond has been apparently poisoned. There are no frogs making any noise at night, and small rodents have been showing up dead on the edge of my yard. There are empty antifreeze jugs thrown in the edge of the woods. I have reached out to DNREC. However, I did not witness anyone actually dumping the antifreeze, and without a witness, there isn't anything they can do. This is shocking and saddening behavior to have happened in our neighborhood. The frogs helped keep the mosquitoes in check. The water in the pond was needed for the small animals and birds. I do not know if it's possible to have the water in the pond cleaned by the city, but if you know a contact I can reach out to, it would greatly be appreciated. And she sent me pictures, and luckily, since I need reading glasses, I didn't get a chance to look at them, but they're kind of ugly, but I did look at them. So if anyone knows anything that we can do about this, if you could let me know, because I have no idea on what to do. And she said that she contacted DNREC. I was spoken to a lady at the 913 line, so we're at Sharon Hill, and she gave me a woman's name at DNREC, and I'm going to contact her. She does something with the brownfields, but in essence, this property is next to this woman's house, and there seems to apparently be some type of poisoning going on there. And if we could do something about it, I'm sure she'd appreciate it. So if you contact me, let me know. I will
Ms. Graves, I'll give you, my card again and you can forward that to me and get someone, take a look into that, all right?
All right, thanks.
I guess it's working.
Yeah, you can take it out and stand and hold it if that's easier for you. And don't forget to sign in, please.
I mean, like, there's no paper up here.
Oh, there was one.
Yeah, there was one.
Ms. Graves, did you take the paper by chance?
He said that's it, nobody else is signing it. But it's not.
My 3 minutes doesn't start until I sign in, right?
Thank you.
All right, my name is Richard Stadt. I am not, thank you. Thank you for the clock. I don't think I'm gonna go the whole 3 minutes. I'm not a resident or citizen of the town of Newcastle, but I think the first time I visited must have been in elementary school with the historic visit to the Dutch house, the Amstel House and the Dutch house from 4th grade. So why am I here? I am the managing partner of 326 Associates LP. 326 Associates LP is a tenant of the trustees of Newcastle Common and has been since 1983, since July of 1983. So a few of you here may know me. Mr. Bergstrom does, Mr. Wiseman does, and a few of the rest of you do. And I was looking at the weekly and I noticed the resolutions or ordinances that were passed recently relative to the proposed flexibility for the city government, flexibility for financially balancing the books to have a rental tax and a differential tax based on criteria yet to be determined. And I wanted to express, I want to do 2 things this evening. First, to attach a face, a real person, to 326 Associates, the parcel that we have leased for, what is it, over 40 years. I haven't done the math. From the trustees, runs from School Lane to Route 273, includes the farmers market, BJ's. We have 70 small businesses inside the farmers market. We've got hundreds of entrepreneurial people that come out and work in the flea market. We have large corporations who are our subtenants, and we have tried to do a good job for decades. And we plan to continue to be a tenant of the trustees for decades to come. When you're trying to get a dent out of a ping pong ball, as is the issue before the city in raising revenues, and you press one place, you probably get a dent somewhere else. And what I would hope that the city government would take to heart is what we all stood up at the beginning of this meeting, put our hands on our hearts and said, the only time we all stood up, liberty and justice for all. So I would hope that there's not an arbitrary. Thank you, Mr. Wiseman. I hope there's not an arbitrary selection of on whom to impose taxes on the folks who rent versus their neighbors who own. On
Your time's up, sir. I mean, you can finish your sentence, but.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, can I respond, Mr. Stadt?
Yes, sir.
The first was,
We don't normally enter into extensive discussions based on public contacts. We're gonna discuss this item later in the, no, we're not that, not the rental tax. We are gonna, a brief response.
Yes, thank you, Council President. First, I wanted to thank you for what you do in the community. You support our community and you bring a lot to our community. I encourage you to, if you have time, to listen in to or come to some of our budget meetings. As you said, you do not live in the community, but you are very much a part of our community. And I personally would love to meet with you and talk with you and share some information with you, and you might have some good ideas and solutions the city could take advantage of, and vice versa. So thank you.
I think I inadvertently turned the mic off, or somebody did it remotely.
No, we can check it. Thank you, sir.
Knows how to reach me. I wanted to be available that day if I didn't want to speak.
My name is Lauren Smith, and I'm an officer. I'm coming here to beg for some help from my community. Chiquette Square, Buttonwood, and William Penn Village. We're in need of help. The river comes up to our back of us, and it's not moving. So in a minute, we're gonna have Mosquito Haven. We have senior citizens that come to sit on their porch, walk in the neighborhood or whatever. We need help with somebody coming to see why that water is not moving in all three communities. We also need help with having the drains cleaned out. I have pictures of how the drains are stacked up with leaves and stuff. I'm just coming here to ask for some help for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Good evening, all. First, I'd like to give a push for Richard Stead, who I've known since before I was born. Great guy, someone that will work with you if you work with him. And to answer your thoughts, Council President Suzanne Sauer was the brainchild behind that idea of, well, if we can't get it from here, we'll get it from there. And you're right. Pinch a ping pong ball and it's going to pimple somewhere else. I'd also like to say I'm really happy because Pete Rose had his lifetime ban lifted, so hopefully he'll get accepted into the Hall of Fame. Treasurer Wissman, if you would, and it doesn't have to be now, could you get to me with how much in the last budget or the current budget we've eaten into our fund that's been set aside? Next, I'd like to thank City Administrator for her procuring a lot of grant money. Without the grant money and the persistence of our two council people again, to come up with creative ways to gain revenue, we're gonna kick that can down the street. I really feel that we don't have the money for a dog park. I adamantly, and if I have to go to every single house in our city, I will get a petition. We don't have the money. I've suggested for 4 years that it should be privately sponsored, put signs. I've even sent emails with pictures, and it's been ignored. There's no transparency, there's nothing. The spending's gotta stop. Instead of figuring out new ways to raise taxes up to 100%,
It's not 30%, it's not 40, it could be 150%. Stuff needs to be cut out of the budget instead of figuring ways to tax the public. We can't take it so much. Is this city truly welcoming and inclusive? I don't believe so. And we'll leave that to the next meeting where I'll give examples of how it's not and how things must change. Could you imagine if the city administration campus was built for $15 million 5-6 years ago? Think of where the budget would be today, a disaster.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Charlie Moore. I'm sort of a new 3-year or so resident of the community. Come here from several other communities. It's a great journey. I just would like to provide a little insight into the issue regarding the use of a community foundation by the city. I have served actively on 2 community foundations where I've lived in the past, and in an advisory capacity in one other community. I've watched these foundations grow from an idea, or actually beyond an idea, to relative maturity and further growth, where their endowments are multiple hundreds of millions of dollars. In my tenure on these committees, we never solicited involvement to manage funds from any municipality. And I can't really recall that we were approached to manage funds by any municipality. I don't want to draw the wrong conclusion, but I would say that there really isn't much of a need. And objectively looking at this community and the size of what happens to this community, I don't see where there's a need to send our money outside the treasurer's office, the administrator's office, or custodial reasons for further distribution for the causes. It should be shortly lived. Community foundations in general are looking to collect funds for a person's desires in perpetuity. I don't necessarily see that a community like Newcastle fits into that bucket. So that's my background, my thoughts for my background. Thank you very much. I have one question for the chief. That is that with street sweeping beginning next week, are we going to enforce the parking regulations? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any comments? If that's all, I have an email that we received from a resident, which we asked to be read tonight, from John DeMundi. Again, well, I'll just read it as it's written. To the editor, or the editor weekly or daily refuses any damaging rhetoric about their $sign guardian angel, city, or trustees, and then that April 30th, 2025. So we submit to City Council, no way I can read this in 3 minutes, so you have unlimited speaking privileges. You are welcome to read it to be put in your council minutes. Now that the council reruns are back, maybe they can consider buying at least 3 speed cameras instead of a dog park. I think walking your dog is beneficial to the owner and the dog much more than visiting a dog park to fraternize with other dog owners. Besides saving us from race car wannabes on 7th Street between 6th and Dobbinsville, Washington Street from 273 to 7th Street and Newcastle Avenue would benefit our lives. A recent portable radar $ check showed the average speed on these ways was over 40 miles per hour, almost double posted. It's bad enough these streets are becoming an out-of-state freeway at least 3 days a week, becoming impassable for residents. The reasonable conclusion would be these cameras would generate their cost $, in a few months, a great safety payback. DelDOT wants our street as a safety outlet for Route 13 failures, so maybe they should pay for them, or else let's figure out a way to obstruct the foreign mayhem. The next item on the agenda is the ordinance 553, which is to establish the budget stabilization fund and capital infrastructure fund. Mr. Mataway and or Mr. Sabato, would you like to introduce this since this was your proposal?
Read it, Madam Chair, you should read it in title only.
Okay, yes, we'll begin by reading the ordinance in title only. An ordinance to amend the City of Newcastle Municipal Code by establishing a new chapter 222, specific financial accounts regarding the creation of a budget stabilization fund and a capital and infrastructure fund. Okay, so now
Thank you, Council President. I'll start, and I think Council Mataway will join in later. Before we open up for discussion with the council, I just wanted to kind of provide a little inspiration and, you know, like what was the intention behind this ordinance. So I kind of got inspired by looking at, you know, like when I joined the council 2 years ago, I've been looking at the budget and you kind of looking for that area where we are putting money aside for strategic investments. And, you know, we have some stuff already in place, but I wanted to look at other places, how they formalize those processes. So I looked at the state, I looked at the counties, some municipalities, and, you know, kind of used, you know, a majority of this draft is, you know, like using the language from Ocean View actually in Delaware, which had a, you know, a thought and Councilperson Mataway, amazing way to kind of simplify for our city what we wanted to do. So that was kind of the inspiration behind, and in addition, kind of like reliance on the volatile revenue sources that are dependent on general economy, housing market, you know, like, and under that, I mean, like property transfer tax that can go, you know, from 200 a year to 700. So like, that was kind of like, how do we not have as much reliance on that? We still want that money to use for reinvesting community, but it's more like, how do we not have to worry about what the housing market is going to be in a given year to live and operate the city safely and kind of be good stewards of that. Franchise fees, you know, like Verizon, all those different things that kind of fluctuate based on the use. Like if you can think of anything that, you know, depends on the usage or, you know, market, this is kind of like the thought there. What the ordinance does in creating stabilization fund and capital improvement fund, investment fund is, you know, like a ability for long-term planning. So one of the things that prescribes is, you know, for city administrator to create a 5-year projections on a capital project. So that's going to be one of those things that's exciting for me as a council person to see, you know, so we can not only plan for current fiscal year, but also we can start thinking about what is that coming down the pipeline in our budget. So it's going to be providing us a little more input on, you know, long-term planning that we can look beyond just, you know, 1 year and be able to, you know, adjust expenditure and revenue size to kind of meet those things. And same thing with the resilience, you know, fund, the anti-stabilization fund is kind of like to provide the resilience to the city, where from year to year, it's difficult to, you know, what we budget and what the actual expenditures differs a lot, right? So like we are budgeting right now for 7.2 million in this current fiscal year. We're probably going to be close to like, you know, our expenditures are much different because things don't get done in a given year, they get carried over. So like, you know, it will help with some of those things where we have a difficult budget shortfall And then you can lean into these funds to say, okay, like, let's say fund that can help us, use some more money in this fund to, close those gaps. It talks a little bit about investment policy, how to kind of invest the, money. But I think city administrator is working a little more on the actual investment policies. I'm not gonna touch upon that, but it's just kind of like prescribing smaller details about, like how to take money out of the funds and stuff. So that's kind of my introduction. I don't know if Councilperson Mataway wanted to add anything to that, and happy to talk more.
So thank you. Just highlight a couple of things. So the concept of a budget stabilization fund or the concept of a capital improvement fund, they are not novel to governments, whether they're country governments, state governments, or local municipality governments. This is something that has been implemented by Newcastle County. Something that's implemented by several municipalities across our state. It's also something that has become a best practice and is taught in academia. So for example, at the Biden School of Public Administration and Policy, these are the types of tools and strategies that professors are mandating and talking about. Additionally, what the creation of these funds allows the city to do is to broaden its horizons and to get away from what we have today. And what I mean by that is simply a checking account, a savings account, a money market account, right? It allows us to have a little bit of a broader vision and to bifurcate certain allocations of money for certain things. The capital, the capital reserve, for example, is not novel to Newcastle. Resolution number 21-10 was signed into power was signed March 2011. The city council of the city of Newcastle at that time established the capital improvement fund, and they funded it with $125,000. And today, in 2025, that account has $125,000. So this is trying to take forward and to carry forward what previous councils had the mindset to do and the vision to do, but to actually craft it out and to be purposeful into doing. Another thing in regards to the budget stabilization fund, our costs as a city, having two unions, et cetera, many people know, and it's been talked about, have dramatically increased. And so those are fixed costs that we need to make sure that we can pay for and maintain. So I'll stop there and welcome the conversation and discussion by everyone.
As I stated in public comment, we need to put some terms in here. Is there a proposal for 22-3 that beginning in fiscal year 2027, X% of the property transfer tax going on to 2028, C is fixed beginning in fiscal year 50% of the property transfer tax rate. Same goes for 22-10. You have an initial percentage that you want to use for 2027 or propose for 2027 or 2028.
Yes, we do. The proposal opens for discussion for, it would be the same for both sections, for both funds. For 2027 would be 12.5%. 25 for 2027. For year 20, fiscal year 27 would be 12.5%.
And 28?
For 28 would be 25%. And then there would be actually under C for the 2029 reduction from 50 to 37.5%. That applies to both.
So we have a motion to amend the ordinance.
Motion to amend the ordinance to add to insert 25 12.5% for fiscal year 2027, 25% for fiscal year 2028, and 37.5% for fiscal year 2029.
That will be for sections 22-3.
For sections 22-3 as well in budget stabilization fund, as well as section 222-10 for the capital improvement fund, investment fund.
You have a motion, and is there a second? That's just really set those rates. Sorry, Madam Chair, I took your thunder. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So it's been moved and seconded to make those amendments, and we can now proceed with the discussion.
I would vote on the amendments.
Oh, okay. So all in favor?
Is there any discussion on the
Yeah,
amendment?
you can discuss the amendments, sure.
All right,
Okay.
so we'll be discussing only the amendments at this point, not
Correct.
the whole.
Not the whole board. That's what I was getting at, sorry, Councilman Day.
Okay,
So I'll just start, I like both of the funds set up, but I do have some concerns about doing these outside of the budget, because that's really what we're doing at this point, you're not seeing the full picture. But in 222-3 method of funding, so in A, B, and C, FY 27, 28, 29, even if we left them all as 50% of the property transfer tax, that would give us about $250,000 a year in the fund. So, but just prior to that, in 22 or 222-2, you're saying that by FY 29, we need to be 50% of the city's budget, which I believe is about $3.5 million. So we're putting ourselves in a position where going into FY 29, we're literally gonna have to put millions of dollars in the fund that we may not be allocating. And again, I'm in favor of both of these. I just think we need to have the conversation while we're talking at the budget meetings. And so we can get the percentages right for this year and going forward. At least going forward, you have time, we could, rewrite the resolution. But for this year, and I do have some concerns about that. I will also say, when I was going through for the capital and infrastructure fund, I see is added, but in section 3, it actually says an initial deposit into a capital and infrastructure fund created pursuant to this ordinance of $500,000 must be included in the annual operating budget for FY 26. So I don't see where it says that in the code itself. But again, these are all questions that I have that I think we just need to talk it out through the budget and see where the numbers lie. I am in favor of it, but I would rather do it through the budget process. Maybe after 1 or 2 of our budget meetings, so we can make sure the numbers look right.
Absolutely.
That's the only issue I have.
I can speak to that, and, like both section 2 and section 3 under 222-12 of that ordinance were initially following up to like where you saw like the percentages. It was just after that, but it got moved on recommendation to the end of the ordinance. So yeah, it's a little, you see that first, and then in the end, that addresses kind of how it's gonna be funded. So basically, what the section 2 says, that initial deposit into budget stabilization fund created pursuant to this ordinance in the amount of 50% of the approved operating budget FY 26 will be included. So basically what that does is, it says out of money market retention. So basically, it would already set it up, if we go for this ordinance, it would use money market retention funds. So it would not be something that we have to, it would just reduce that $9 million that we have right now and move it into that restricted area that would be for that fund. Basically, that's what it does. So like, it will be fully funded right now if we voted in.
but that to me is not what this ordinance says. It just says we'll put 50% of the budget. It doesn't say where it's coming from.
To be allocated from city's money market retention appropriation is not the end of that sentence, section 2, yeah.
And so that's where we have the unrestricted.
But that's what I'm saying, I'm assuming it
But
just goes
then
from
once
unrestricted
we
because it's
lock
not
it
described.
into this fund, we can only take it out for these purposes listed in this ordinance. So you're really locking us in with big chunks of money at a time when we're still trying to come up with a budget that doesn't have to draw down reserves. And you're taking those reserves sort of off the table, it sounds like.
Not necessarily, I mean, that can be a one way of seeing it, but, under expending of funds, basically, there's two different ways to do it, so under, option A, under subsection 222-4, is basically natural disaster allowed for, if there's a state of emergency issue, like flooding, whatever, there's no, basically, fund can be emptied out. So there's no limitation there. And then under A3, says funds expended from VSF under this section shall not exceed 100%, basically, can be up to 100% of the balance contained therein, and shall be expended only for those purposes approved by a majority of the members elected to the city council. And then under subsection B, it just says that if there's now a budget shortfall, so like now it's second subsection, if there's a budget shortfall, for example, it would, the borrowing, I guess, from this fund shall not exceed 10% of the city's operating budget. So that depends on the year to year, right? So that's, for this particular fiscal year, what is our budget currently proposed? 7.5, so that would be $750,000 roughly. That would be the 10% that we're talking about. So like, you could still take out $750,000 under this current fund. And once again, we're here to discuss these percentages of, like this is just something that we took from Ocean View, work with the percentages, and, we're happy to discuss, any movement along that. But it doesn't restrict in a sense, because we haven't used more than 10% in most of the years, right? This past year was the only one that we probably used more than that. So that's just kind of, yes, correct, that is restricted, but $750,000 used for facilitation fund is significant, I think, chunk of money, but once again, it can be changed. So to answer the first question, Councilperson, they said it would be fully funded, both would be fully funded immediately, just basically, we just earmark it for these funds. And to answer the second question, it's somewhat restricted, but open to for that.
So I'm a visual person. Can we get a spreadsheet to kind of show some of these projections and maybe different percentages to show how that's going to impact us? I need examples because there's a lot of work, but I don't see how this is all getting funded. I don't see exactly dollar amounts. It's something that you maybe put in a spreadsheet to help us show how this will work.
I mean, it's here in the language, so I mean, I don't know how to, we can visualize it, sure. But on the expending of funds, B3, it talks about no more than 25% of an authorized VSF withdrawal in any given fiscal year may be utilized to support personnel costs, including payroll or costs associated with labor contract negotiations, unless approved by anonymous vote. And I would want to move to change the anonymous to major. I spoke to our council to change that to majority vote. So there'll be another amendment I would like to propose later. For purpose of this section, personnel costs include but are not limited to salary, wages, benefits, bonuses, and financial commitments related to the city's collective bargaining agreements. So this subsection expands that 10% for the different use to 25%, which we're not talking about $2 million for the given for a current fiscal year, close to $2 million.
Again, I'm gonna go with Mr. Zelt here. I think it would be really good to have a spreadsheet that shows specific examples, maybe even using our proposed 2026 budget, or using this year's just for an example. But I also don't understand why you want to take money out of the budget, out of our budget, when our unrestricted funds reserves are somewhat there. That's why we create these reserves, so that if something major were to happen, we have that money there. So, but I'm with them on the spreadsheet because, again, it's word salad. You may see it as clear as day in your head, but it's kind of word salad, and I don't know what other people in the audience are, but if you saw it up on the screen, I think it would, well, you can't see it now, it's not there. I mean, if you saw a spreadsheet up on the screen, there would be a significant better understanding of what it is you're looking for.
I will just say quickly, this is just formalizing what you just said, like this is Now, I'm not saying that reserve currently that we use are not, it's pretty much just putting regulations in place for how to treat the reserves in a way, like, or, you know, like it basically, it says that we have to have, so what we don't have right now, for example, in our reserves, is what the civilization does is to say, has to be 6 months worth, 50% worth of the fiscal year, right? So like, what that ensures is that we have a, 6 months worth of operating costs, should anything happen to some of the major variables, economy, whatever, right? So that we can, operate as a city, and that already exists, but this just formalizes that, and make sure that it doesn't go below that number. So if we're ever to say, we spend, out of our 9 million, we want to spend 6, this would prevent it to spend 6 unless that is one of these needs identified in here to say, and then puts a plan in here to replenish that fund in years to come. So that's just the mechanism to make sure that we are leaving the budget for the generations to come, to say you have at least 6 months worth of operating cost in there, So it's not an issue right now, right? Because we have way more than that in our reserves, but it's just kind of setting it up for years when we might have to work on securing that balance. I hope it's never close to 50%, and we always have more than 50%, but it's just a tool that formalizes that, I guess. Sure. And sorry, Councilman Sumano.
No, go ahead, Councilperson.
The one question I have, if we fully fund it up front, and then we're gonna feed it with the property transfer tax money, well, what's the goal then? So are we just gonna keep feeding it every year, or are we gonna maintain it at 50% of our overall budget? Like, what's the idea here?
Yeah, I think the idea is to, it would be challenging to your point to get it to 50% otherwise, right? We would have to be very aggressive and increase these percentages way more significantly, right? So that is great situation that we're in right now, that we have the ability to fund it initially. So the idea there was to leave, some of the money to be from the property transfer tax to be used for, continuing operating expenses, but then feed it for those inflationary factors, so that it's always at 50%. Hopefully, as we're growing the budget every year, it will, just because of, right, everything is going up, all the prices, everything's going up. It kind of allows that fund to grow to be 50%, so that we're complying with that. Now, it might be a washout if we're adding, but then also taking up, and then we're gonna have to probably just adjust things as we go along to say, okay, let's try to figure out the ways of making sure that this is funded, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's just the idea behind it, to make sure that we have 6 months worth of revenue. Once again, I hope we never get close to 50%, but that's the reason why it's trying to put money in there, because it's anticipating us as a body, not us people, but council as a body, to come in and say, oh, we're having a shortfall, $200,000. And this just fills in that need, right?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, yeah.
Just a couple of thoughts. One is, maybe if we fully fund it up front, then after that, instead of saying it's 12.5, 25, and 37.5% of the property taxes, transfer taxes, maybe we say we allocate 100% of the property transfer taxes over what we budgeted for that year to go into that account. So then it just seems like it gives us a little cushion in case we don't get to where we need to. And we can still talk about a percentage if we were under the 50% mark.
I love that. I mean, Ocean View does exactly that. They have made a intentional decision, 2013 or 11, I don't quote me on the year, to not rely at all on, when they adopted the stabilization fund in their city. They made a, decision as a council not to rely on this at all, right? And there were several concerns that they had. There's not many parcels to be, built or sold. So like, it was kind of like one of those things. It's great right now, but if the fund eventually, is going to start whittling down. So like, it was just kind of one of those things when they thought about the future, ways of kind of tackling. So I fully support that idea, because, less rely on that fluctuation that we have year to year, then more you have ability to kind of know market stuff is stuff, right? So like, this year we collected 480, last year 750, year before that, I don't know, 250. So that's a challenging thing with that as a council member to rely and debate, budget around. So I totally agree on that. So, Councilperson Mattaway, I'm talking.
I just have one last question, it's actually for Max. So Max, what is our ability to discuss, if we didn't make this decision tonight, what's our ability to discuss it in our budget meeting?
Yeah.
I assume if we advertise it as part of the budget meeting, we can discuss it, because obviously, I think you gotta look at this as a whole with the budget, not like piece by piece.
That's correct. Because if you put it on the agenda, you can discuss, you had your public hearing on the issue, had the ability to do that. You can put it on the agenda and discuss it, and technical terms passed, I don't like to use that, but consideration at a future meeting if you did it. Now, the reason I stood up here, and I usually don't, is because we have a motion that's been seconded that's on the table. So I want to deal with that motion in a second, and then if there was a further motion to table or otherwise, then we would deal with that at that time.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, in the discussion, we haven't really touched on the percentages that Mr. Zabaka suggested.
So-
Does anybody have comments specifically about those?
So Mr. Zabaka, Ms. Nottaway, just, do you want to continue forward with your motion and seek to withdraw it based on the discussion points?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So, I think, so I was actually thinking and wondering the same thing that Joe had just asked. From my perspective, the goal of this was to get this out there in the atmosphere as we look ahead toward the budget season with the idea and recognition that we had to have a first reading and a second reading and being able to potentially implement this in enough time and to get this out there in everyone's perspective so that you can draw upon everyone's perspective to make this the most comprehensive, thoughtful document that it can be. So that was my, thought in trying to be supportive of putting this forward. I am in support of what Councilperson Day and others have mentioned in regards to working it into the budget. And I would just say, just give two examples. So right now we say we have $8.7 million in money market retention. We all know that the best practice is to have 6 months to a year in reserves. So optically, we think we have $8.7 million as like a general slush fund, but we really don't when we take that into consideration. And this is an effort to bifurcate that and put that off on the side.
Just to your point, I just want to note that we saw the remainder of this fiscal year that is in that total amount, and we have the money that we taken for the ARPA funds that we are holding off for future projects. So just believes us with about 5.5.
Right. So then I would also just note for the record, page 49 of the 2020 comprehensive plan, it says as a strategy for the city to develop a capital improvement program, identifying desirable physical street improvements throughout the city. So yes, we want to do that, but you can't have a capital improvement program without capital improvement dollars, right? And so we're trying to marry the two. But I personally, given council's question, do move to remove.
You just withdraw your
To
motion.
withdraw.
Withdraw your second.
To carry it forward and continue.
So your motion is to set the percentages. So you're going to withdraw that motion?
Yes, because withdraw.
Withdraw that motion. So I'm trying to help you through. I think I got consensus here. So the motion would be to further discuss the ordinance the next budget meeting and have it considered at a future council meeting.
Yes, now, the next budget meeting is Thursday, and it's not on the agenda, so it has to
Edit
be
it,
the next one.
the next appropriate
Right.
budget meeting.
Okay, with appropriate notice.
Can I add to that motion just to change that
I
anonymous
just
stuff?
offered it.
No, I know, but can we also amend it to change anonymous, because that's one of those things that, that speaks to, this is limiting, right, the councils, but changing this from anonymous, this was language that, would be used in.
All right, that's a separate amendment.
I know, but I'm saying, it's just that basically changing the language, because I can't change it, and present a change to you.
Why don't you change that next time after you've had your discussion? Because you're gonna discuss it, and they're gonna talk.
Oh, I see.
We got the changes anyway.
Basically, I was just trying to, I don't anticipate that comment anyway, so I was just trying to change it now. Figured it would be.
I would recommend doing all your changes at once.
Then.
Okay, so we've had a first and a proposal to withdraw the amendment and a second to withdraw the amendment.
So.
All in favor of withdrawing the amendment, setting the specific percentages that Mr. Zabaka mentioned earlier, Aye. Okay, so that is withdrawn. And then we have a second sort of motion in.
I'm gonna offer a proposed motion to continue discussion of the proposed ordinance at the next appropriate budget meeting and to consider the ordinance at a future council meeting.
So who would like to make the motion as put forth by Mr. Wall?
Motion to, would like to make a motion to, continue the discussion of this ordinance at a next appropriate budget, meeting and consider the ordinance at future council meetings.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're finished with this, we're in proceedings.
Thanks, Max. It's always joyful ride to make motions of ordinance.
Yes, is it possible between now and then to come up with some kind of a spreadsheet or flow chart that would show how this that might make it easier for people to visualize?
You can show some cameras.
Yeah, we can attempt to work, that, I mean,
Gives you
whatever
some
makes it
time.
easier, yeah, and then also I would ask for the next appropriate budget meeting, Antonina, if you could have a version proposed of the budget to us, but also have a second version that would show money market reduced. For proposed amounts, I don't want to press the actual amounts as a part of the meeting, but just kind of to aid individuals, I guess. I think that would be helpful as well. So that capital $500,000 is shown as a line, increase of 125, and then 3.5, whatever be that exact. That would be great as a part of the visual, so it can be part of that presentation.
Sure.
Thanks.
And with that, if we get an example of maybe like 2 years out, money comes out of it, and then how we refund. So I can understand that, thank you.
Is it a scam? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the agreement with the trustees regarding the bathrooms, playground, and basketball courts in Battery Park. The council has in their packet a copy of this agreement that's been negotiated over, I'll just say, an extended period of time with the trustees. It proposes, if I may attempt a summary, that the city will take over the management of the bathroom facilities, the playground, within the footprint of the current playground and the basketball court. In preparation for this, the trustees have installed improved security cameras around the bathroom. They agree that they will do the routine maintenance and provide paper products for the restroom facilities, but the city will be responsible for any extraordinary cleaning or damages. Some of those, of course, could be submitted to insurance if there's vandalism or so forth. And with some funds, yes.
I don't think they're making the camera improvements, they're giving us the money to make the camera improvements.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, that's all right. Thank you for that
Yes.
correction. So, yeah, we're going to arrange it, but they're going to give us a contribution
It's our vendor, yes.
to help pay for it, $11,600. Did I miss anything? So, and it also provides, this agreement may not be amended without the consent of third parties. Of the two parties, and the city will keep liability insurance in place for these facilities, which we already have. Is that correct? Correct. So the main additional thing we would have to budget for is the maintenance, if there were extraordinary maintenance costs.
And that's included in the proposed budget.
And that is included in the budget. So is there any further discussion of this proposed agreement of the council?
I would just, like to thank Council President, Councilperson Day, as well as, City Administrator Santillo for, working on this. And I want and need to say it publicly. I also would like to, thank the trustees of Newcastle Commons.
Yeah, I can't, I'm just gonna, join the, thanks because this was a process that needed to happen and, I'm glad that both sides were, willing partners at the table and having open mind to, discuss these transitionary items. So, I'm happy that this is one of those, hopefully, another starts between the city and the trust, in our future, collaborations on projects like this. I have two questions and hopefully they're easy answers. I was just, page 2 of the contract, can we, sorry, this is Matt's question. Can we? It says the city will complete the planned 3-camera surveillance system upgrade for the bathroom facilities. My question here is, and this doesn't have to be necessarily part of the agreement, but can we do that, because we're assuming maintenance for the playground, basketball and bathroom? So this is not a contract, sorry. Can we do this as well for the other 2 facilities, just so we have an eye on those facilities too?
Yeah, we discussed this, with these representatives, and, there is discussion.
I don't think that would hold up this contract. This is just a question if we can restart the second.
Yeah, number 8, additional improvements. So, at a time we decide to have additional security measures, we can discuss that with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that would fall under that. That would be great too.
It wouldn't necessarily be done immediately, but it could be
Yeah,
part
it's
of
not.
the ongoing.
Exactly. My last question is regarding the exhibit A that was provided with the map of the playground. I see that the site survey was done in 2018. I think this is appropriate map for the playground because we reverted from COVID back to original map that was before pandemic. So being that this is 18, it looks correct. I just wanted to kind of make sure that it is, so that the borders we have right now with the,
Yeah, so the intent for that exhibit was, mostly for the, in addition to the location, the stormwater and, the locations of that.
Yeah, part of the agreement is that the city will take care not to damage the storm drain system that the trust installed
But yes, we'll-
under the battery. And I think that's why this is dated 2018, because that's when that was done. So this wasn't so much about delineating the playground as it was to show us where the storm system, the drain system is, so we know where we can't dig and other things that would damage it. But it's deep enough that, for example, that trucks can drive across it without damage.
I know, but one of the first items in our contract talks about Battery Park also includes playground, with the including equipment and water depicted in exhibit A. So I just want to make sure that we're committing to the playground orders that we have right now. So I think, I'm sure it's already, that is it. I just want to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves in the scope. Well, that's all.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, yeah, let me see, on the first page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, says, whereas the playground facilities were originally installed in 2022, which is, of course, phase 1.
Right.
With grant funding from the Delaware Division of Parks and Recreation and are in the process of being expanded to include additional playground equipment and landscaping improvements. So there, to me, that's referencing the playground as it exists today and incorporating the plans for phase 2.
Yeah, like when we put the water during phase 1, that was in coordination with the trust to make sure that the top, if you're looking at your exhibit, guys, the top of the northern part of the map, sorry, I don't know how else to say it, that part of the page is wider, that, like where the phase 2 would be accommodating when the ship is growing. It is right now, but I'm saying, I just want to make sure that the survey is, like the borders are accommodating for phase 2 right now. Just want to make sure that the map is, I think it is, but just.
Yeah, we'll confirm.
Thanks.
Madam President, I'd just like to, just a couple words too. I'd like to thank the trust, specifically Tommy Wilson and Pete Toner, We worked with them, we very amicable, we appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have the bathrooms open for day in Old Newcastle. I anticipate if it gets passed tonight that we will. So again, we appreciate your, working with us on this.
Yes. Any other comments or questions? Do we need a formal vote or simply a consensus that we,
You need a vote on a contract.
I'll make a motion, we approve the contract.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Hold on for a second here. Thank you.
All right. The next item is the discussion of a City of Newcastle Legacy Fund with the Delaware Community Foundation. This is it's not an ordinance, it's just the discussion and the agreement. And again, Ms. Tantilla, Mr. Mataway, I know you've been working on this and talking with people from the Delaware Community Foundation. You have introductory remarks.
Yeah, if I may, I just want to pick up where we left off at the last meeting. We discussed, the different options that Ms. Parza, presented to us for the fund, and the, potential agreement at the time. And, you, the charge of Mr. Mataway and Ms. Parza, yeah, to go ahead and draft up an agreement. And then from there, we would present you an agreement, and then at a future date, we can present an ordinance that would put parameters around the fund. So this is just step one of this process. We've been working on for a while. So we have in front of you a draft agreement, which, you know, we talked through for some time now. We have the agency fund, and we have chosen to invest in the flagship pool, which was the recommendation of Ms. Garza, to, you know, give us the best return of investment, for the time being and be less restrictive. And with one of the questions that came up at the last meeting, I'm having a blank on what it was.
Yeah, what I recall, one of the questions was, if the fund would be, an endowed or not.
Yes.
And so the endowed,
Use the mic, please.
the questions were endowed versus non-endowed, essentially, speaking to the city's or the city council's ability to access the funds and what it's for, et cetera. And so this draft agreement speaks to it and identifies it as an unendowed fund, which means that the city has essentially free reign and access to it, assuming pursuant to the ordinance that will be drafted later, where it will be adopted by a majority of council, and the city administrator Tantilla or her successor would be the agent to the request of funds. Additionally, in referencing to the flagship pool, fiscal year to date, the flagship pool was yielded 6.38% year to date. At the 5-year mark, it was yielded 11.01%. It's a mixed bag of U.S. equities, non-U.S. equities, some alternative investments, fixed income, et cetera. Currently, right now, the city of Newcastle just has checking and savings accounts. The city has no money invested into the financial markets right now. The city of Newcastle's charter reads that the city to receive devices, bequests, gifts, donations of all kinds, property within said city and beyond the limits thereof, which use in its benefit in trust or charitable, benevolent, educational, or other public purposes, and to do all things necessary to carry out the purposes of such devices, bequests, gifts and donations. It's simply not our expertise. We don't even have the ability to accept stock right now. And this would be a mechanism in which people could charitably donate. Ms. Tantillo and I happened to run into Police Chief Majewski earlier this week, and he was telling us a story of how a local firehouse in the state was a recipient for funds that essentially from private donors that allows it to run independently. And it was unpromptedly, did you say that? Is that accurate?
Yeah, it was a wonderful story about how someone had left their life to the fire department, and they were able to help them run successfully and not have to rely on outside sources of funding. And it was definitely inspiring for other people, and really told the story of the woman's life and her commitment to that fire company.
Right. And so the city received a $10,000 seed donation from an anonymous donor, and the request on the table since I guess about December or so was for the city to fund the remaining $15,000. In regard to the draft agreement, I think we would make a request for an adjustment to include all members currently on council in regards to number 6, in respect to the associates. So we would want to strike that, include all members by name of council, and the associate essentially gives everyone the ability to access the statements and to view activity. Ms. Santello came up with the recommendation of a draft ordinance subsequent to this, in which council would be provided or required to be provided quarterly statements, if you will, that would be affixed to the city packet. Is that accurate?
Correct, yeah.
Mr. Zelt, did you have any questions or comments? I have a couple of questions. So aside from this initial 15,000, because I understand the minimum required to establish such a fund is 25,000, and we have the 10 in donation. Would you envision the city adding other public funds to this reserve or this legacy fund in the future?
I'm unsure. I haven't thought that far.
Okay.
But I do think it's valuable to not have all your money in checking and savings accounts.
Okay, but this money is not FDIC insured. Is that correct? Every time with my own personal investments, it always says caution, and, equities, these kinds of funds are not insured by the FDIC. So is there any kind of insurance on these funds if the stock market were to crash?
Well, there's thresholds. So if you have $100 million in a checking account, all of your $100 million is not.
I understand that,
insured.
right, I understand that, but in this, none of it is insured by FDIC, is that right?
I can't speak to that, what I do know is that within the pool, there's always a certain cash allocation, right? And if the cash oftentimes are in money market funds or sweep deposits, those things would be.
Okay, but the bulk of the money would be in equities, right? Because the sweep
Yes.
accounts ebb and flow, those are usually just like overnight or for short periods of time, right?
Yes, we do have with us Ms. Bourgeois here, and to whatever extent she feels comfortable. If there's any questions at the end, we'd love for her to speak to any of them. If Council President would allow.
Well, yes, can I ask one more question before then? I know there are various organizations that manage these type of funds. So how did you come to choose the Delaware Community Foundation? Did you compare fees and services with other organizations and choose this one because you thought they were the best? And could you tell us about that process?
Yes. So the Delaware Community Foundation is a 501(c) organization that is a premier think tank not only in Delaware but in the region. We serve many roles, all of which have the primary focus of strengthening Delaware through community and based philanthropy. They have over $300 million in their stewardship, and they partner with a publicly traded company for investments where the company manages over $1 trillion.
I know they have a large amount of money in their investment portfolio, but my question was, did you compare them with any other organizations that provide similar services and compare their fees, compare their rate of return? And if, how did you choose Delaware Community Foundation over the other funds, other organizations that do the same process?
Yeah, the Delaware Community Foundation is a unique organization, and they're the best at what they do in this region. They're certainly money managers like any type of bank out there or a registered financial agent that can manage money. Their service and what differentiates them is their ability to match people that have philanthropic minds to specific types of philanthropic efforts. Additionally, their mission is community-based and not to make as much money in terms of they're not on commissions like many of these other types of financial service agencies, et cetera. And they have a local presence. They're people, they're real, they're tangible, and they're accountable. Ms. Tintilla, did you want to speak to any more?
I did do a little bit of research to look for a similar organization. I didn't find one locally. There was another organization in another state, but I wasn't able, their information wasn't as accessible as the Delaware Community Foundation was.
So am I understanding correctly that you're saying there really is no other organization in this area that provides this level of service?
Yeah, that I've been.
Okay. I mean, when we make a big contract to do a road project, we get 3 bids. And I just wanted to do a similar process for something like this before we hand over our money.
Understood, absolutely.
Just a couple questions, Madam President.
Sure.
So I would agree that the Delaware Community Foundation is an exemplary organization, and I do support this. I think this does give us the ability, with their help, to match donors, to be able to make charitable donations to the city, whether it's through a stock market donation or through their will, many different avenues that we collect money. So I do agree with it. But what I'll say is the same thing I said on the last ordinance. I would much rather do this in the context of the budget. So if we pass this tonight, would this come out of this year's budget or would it come out of next year's budget?
That's up to you. If you want to make a budget reallocation from this year's budget, that, or we can build it into next year's budget. But the $10,000 and the anonymous donation that was given to us would have to be returned.
And what was the deadline for that one?
The end of the fiscal year.
So June 30.
Correct. And we would need to know well before then so that we can get the check and it can be out of our account.
So I know that this has been on the table for discussion for a number of months. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Councilperson Day. I believe at the last session or discussion, you charged myself and Ms. Tintilla with potentially identifying a category in which monies could be taken from. I don't want to say, excuse me, taken from is not, I apologize for saying that, where monies could be sourced from. And I believe we have identified a line item in the budget that has $60,000 in it, and none of the $60,000 have been used to date.
From the current budget?
Yes, sir.
I'm in favor of, if we want to make a budget amendment and do it in the current budget, I'm okay with that. If we are talking about it for next year's budget, I think, again, we need to talk about it with all the rest of the pieces for next year's budget.
Yes, sir. The intention was this year's budget in timeliness to coincide with the charitable donation that exhausts June 30th. Is that right? Okay.
just to add to that, I agree with this, idea of using this year's, unspent, different projects that were allocated, but not gonna be spent or something. Just to make the FY 26 conversation separate from this, so it's, easier and not having that, commitment, but, and also due to the, donation of $10,000 to help start this fund. I am looking at well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Antonina and Councilperson Mataway for, drafting the, terms of use and a back page and providing this is very helpful. Looking at the donors currently who you can kind of fund right now, and there's a lot of schools, there's a lot of, museums, in Delaware, there's, Cape Hamilton State Park here, so, it does seem like it's widely used, the 4-H Foundation, right, so it's used widely by a lot of different, funds or foundations in the state, so that's a good sign. And, I think we all have seen, I love the fact that they stand kind of with their word, in a sense, like I've been tracking since we got introduced to them, like, what do they do? And I love the fact that they do scholarship for kids, or they help with homeless in our state, so I do think that, I like the fact that they put money back in the community, so that was something that I really loved seeing, from that perspective, and really respected it. And one of the things I was initially thinking, we should connect them with trust, for the scholarship, and try to make sure that kids in our, neighborhoods are, knowing about these opportunities as well. That aside, I think it's a great opportunity for us to, potentially be able to receive gifts that we're not able to receive right now, and also have that managed by a team of expertise. That, team at the city administration building is it's great, but, we have, 2 people, right, or 1 person, really, Courtney, that would be managing that, so I think that's the service that is worth, trusting DCF to do the right thing, so. And then, I'm concerned about the market too, the council president's comment, but I see this one of those things like invest in it, and I don't know what Councilperson Mataway thought about future investments, right? But it's one of those things that I don't necessarily think we may invest into this unless we see this portfolio doing really great, and it would say, oh, we could do even better if we, that there's a higher return than what we have in our current, portfolio. But some of those things when I'm thinking invest 25,000 or 15 as a city, forget about it, and 10, 20 years from now, say, okay, like councils down the road can enjoy the benefits of this fund that, immediate market might not respond to favorably to, next year return. I'm not an expert, but, it's one of those things that, the name legacy, I think it's meant to kind of help
Yes.
stuff down the road.
This
So
is a
that's kind of-
long-term investment, not something to balance the budget in 2 years.
Exactly.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of how I see it. That was just, I wanted to provide that perspective. That was me kind of like 15,000 and forget it and see hopefully.
Just to get down to the practicalities of it. If we have to have this done by June 30, and we need an ordinance, if we agree to this tonight, then we need an ordinance. An ordinance has to have a first reading and a second reading, which means we're gonna have to put this into some special meetings with the budget. Because is there a minimum amount of time we have to have, Mr. Walton, between the first reading and the second reading?
7 days.
7 days, okay. So we could have a first reading next month, or next week, I mean, because we have time to get it on the agenda. And
So the, next, we can have a first reading at the budget,
Yeah.
either one. We could have it at the June 10th council meeting or the budget meeting on the 11th. And then we have, plenty of other meetings in December.
right, for the second reading.
For the
and
budgets, we have the 18th, the 25th, the 26th, the 30th.
And we have to have a public hearing before the second reading.
Yes, so there should be.
So we'd have to bundle that in with our budget meetings.
So the readings that we've had before don't count?
Not for an ordinance, we haven't tried to. We have to
Because
do
you gotta
that.
allocate the budget money,
Right.
is what the ordinance is for, right?
The ordinance would just, further define the parameters of how the council wants to use the funds, and how to the processes.
And
So
shifting
how, council can have a discussion, we would set up parameters to say, council makes a motion to, withdraw from this account for this capital project. Then that motion, would be carried on by the city administrator and the finance officer who would contact CF. and draw the funds out of the account and move the project forward, things like that. That's what the work.
In terms of moving the money from one line
In
item.
terms of moving.
That's a resolution, right?
We can do it via resolution or we can, a motion.
You can move money based upon motions, you don't
So
need
if
a
you
full
choose-
resolution.
Okay.
If you choose to do that tonight, you're welcome to do that. Councilperson Mataway was referring to was that employee retention line of 60,000 that we budgeted for in this FY 25 current budget. We have not used that amount this year, so if you wanted to reallocate 10,000 to put towards this fund,
It's 15.
I'm sorry, thank you. We can do that.
Okay, so that could be part of, like, the same night time we do the first reading, for example, or.
We can do it then, we can do it
Or we
today.
can do it
Can I
right
make a
now.
motion now to
Sure.
leave 50,000 out of employee retention fund?
Second.
No? Go ahead.
Approve the agreement. And then if you want to do that, you can do it.
You can approve it at the next.
You have it
No, right now,
right
right,
now.
right, because it's
Okay, I
done.
thought, okay, never mind, then,
Yeah, you have
I'll
to-
make a motion to approve the agreement.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Make your motion. I'd like to make a motion to, allocate 50. I would like to make a motion to allocate 50,000 out of the FY 25 employee retention line appropriation to newly established legacy fund to, add an initial contribution of $25,000 alongside $10,000 donation already provided.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Ms. Cantillo, you're gonna get a check for $500 from me, as a donation towards this.
Okay, great, thank you. So we will work with Ms. Rosa to set this up and move the funds around to fund this account, and then we'll have an ordinance to have the first reading at the regular council meeting, that just goes this next day. And then the budget meetings following, we'll have a public hearing and
But we can't set up the fund until all that is completed and the ordinance is passed, right?
we just approved the agreement, so we can set it up via that, and then we'll set the parameters.
The ordinance is the parameters for how we
How we
use
using
it.
the funds,
Okay.
and yes,
So in other words, based on what we've done tonight, we can proceed to set up the fund.
correct,
To meet the deadline that we have to meet or lose the $10,000.
correct.
Just to add to that, I'm sorry, Council President, so by the time next time we need to discuss this, I presume that 25,000 will be, the account is created ideally and 25,000 invested in a flagship pool. Yeah, Council President, I already said.
Yes.
Kind of the takeaway, right?
Yes,
All right, perfect.
how it's.
Then we're just gonna,
I'm sorry,
I was just saying, so my takeaway here is that by the next time we meet to discuss this, whenever that is, you'll already hopefully set up this fund, the DCF, and already transfer $25,000 into the
yes,
flagship pool.
So we already have the 10.
we have the 10 from the anonymous donor.
So then there is no huge rush for the
Correct.
ordinance
Yes, so
because
we can just introduce the ordinance in June and then in
finish it in July in the normal process.
Yes.
Because if all we need to do to get it set up and meet that deadline is what we've already done, then the ordinance can be more thoughtfully prepared instead of rushed through.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is first reading of ordinance 554 to amend the municipal code regarding the senior citizens property tax exemption. I will read the ordinance and then we'll have our public hearing and subsequent discussion at a future meeting. Whereas the council of the city of Newcastle, the council possesses the authority to adopt, amend, modify, or repeal the city of Newcastle municipal code, city code. And whereas the city of Newcastle recognizes the burden real property taxes may have on senior citizens who are often on a fixed income. And whereas the existing property tax exemption for senior citizens has not been adjusted since 2007. And whereas the city council finds that a moderate adjustment to the real property tax exemption for senior citizens in the city of Newcastle is prudent and appropriate and in the best interest of the city and its residents. Now therefore making the express finding that the provisions of this ordinance enhance and promote the health, safety, and welfare of the city of Newcastle, be it ordained by the council of the city of Newcastle as follows. Section 1, City Code, Chapter 221, Taxation, Article 1, Senior Citizens Exemption, Section 221-1. Conditions for exemption on real property tax is hereby amended as follows, with the new language identified in bold and underlined and deleted text shown by a bold strike through text. Section 221-1. Conditions for exemption on real property tax. Every resident of the city of Newcastle, being the owner of real property located therein, who is 65 years of age or older, shall be entitled to an exemption from municipal taxation on such real property to the extent of the first 32,000 of assessed value thereof, provided that the income of the property owner shall not exceed $25,000, changed from 15 for an individual, or 40,000 changed from 30 for a couple. No person shall be entitled to an exemption from the taxation unless he or she shall have made written application therefor prior to September 1st, 1970, for the fiscal year July 1st, 1970 to June 30th, 1971, and prior to May 1st of each subsequent year for the fiscal year beginning on the following July 1st. The Council of the Mayor and Council of Newcastle may by resolution prescribe forms upon which application for exemption from taxation under this article shall be made. Section 2, if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is for any reason held to be unconstitutional or invalid, such decision shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. Section 3, in the event any existing ordinances or parts of ordinances are in conflict herewith, the provisions of this ordinance shall control. In Section 4, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its adoption and approval. The final item on our agenda for tonight is a discussion, motion, and possible vote to authorize an agreement to utilize a right-of-way agreement on Harmony Street. Should I read the agreement or just summarize it?
You can summarize it and I'm happy to help. as well.
Okay. Actually, since you've been involved with this, Ms. Tantolo, why don't you tell us about it and summarize it? Thank you.
Sure. So, Mr. Lorenz is a resident here in the city, and there is an area at the edge of his property, which was maintained by a former owner of that property. It is city property. It's another street, and Mr. Lorenz has reached out to us and the Tell and Read DAR chapter to ask the city permission to plant some beautiful plants in that location and make it more scenic, and has also requested the DAR chapter to help fund that. So we have prepared a right-of-way agreement between us, the city, and Mr. Lorenz to allow him to do this. And that has been provided to you along with the exhibits which indicate the location and which also present the plans that Mr. Lorenz will go to plant in that location.
And I noticed that the agreement also has conditions that it has to be maintained for public use.
Correct.
And it's revocable, and
If we order to remove it.
it's right, and if Mr. Lorenz no longer owns the property, then that ends the agreement. And it's an indemnification and hold harmless of the city, its officers, employees, elected officials from damages or expenses related to this use. And Mr. Lorenz agrees to maintain the improvements in its clean, safe, and orderly condition and comply with applicable local, state, and federal laws. He agrees not to interfere with access and utilities and to remove the improvements, I guess, should he sell his home and therefore no longer be maintaining it. So the way this is written, it sounds like a no-risk way for the city to get a kind of messy piece of property turned into something attractive.
Council President Souter, I would just like to say that, Mr. Lorenz was out there cleaning up the property, trash and everything, and, I referred him to the city administrator and the city went out with, large machinery. And they cleared that area and Mr. Lorenz has put a bench there for the time being. And I see people sitting up there all the time. You can look down Harmony Street now and see the water. It's great. So, the Batellery chapter is the chapter that I belong to. And we approved $500 for the project of his $899 that he requested.
I just want to note, Mr. Lorenz did originally request a bench to be installed on his accord. We think it'd be more appropriate if the city installed the bench and ensure the safety and upkeep of that. So we will be looking into that as soon as possible.
Thank you. I love this. I'm smiling as I'm listening to this, honestly. Like, this is fantastic effort. I reached out to the prior city administrator and Antonina. One of the first communications I had was, I've read this article in the New York Times a while ago about how cities are reinventing these empty spaces and identifying areas where you can, plant some of these native plants. And, it's an effort for the first 2-3 years, but then it's kind of, sustainable and not much upkeep going forward. And I, talked to the tree commission at the time with Mr. Bartel, and I think I engaged Antonina in this process as well. And, this is my kind of dream to have a, almost like a superintendent part of public services to identify these locations in the city where we could, even more if possible, right? Like, beautify the city in these areas that could use upland. So I'm really happy to see this. This is a fantastic initiative and fully support this. I really just bringing a smile to my face. And we were in Europe last year, driving through Germany, and everywhere you go, like even the city, it's just so beautiful. Everything just native plants, after native plants. Yeah, and we do a good job. Denmark does a good job in Delaware as well, I believe. Or, as you go down the highway, but for them that starts in the city, right? As you walk out, as you drive outside the city. So those are some of the things that we also have currently, but I also just always thought like could expand even more. So I love this. Absolutely, it's amazing. It's the beauty of our time.
I see that Mr. Lorenz is here. Did you want to say anything? No?
I appreciate the Department of Public Works for their help. I think they took pity on me cleaning up the brush, and they had a crew come out and help, and that allowed me to access the site and get a couple bins of garbage removed from there. So, what I'm asking for is permission to plant a Delaware perennial garden at the end of Harmony Street there, and DAR chapter. Chapter has agreed to help with some of that expense. So really seeking two things. One is permission, and Antonina has been helpful in putting together an agreement that would protect the city and allow me to plant that garden and maintain it going forward. And if there's any, if it's a couple $100 in funds that would help close the gap between about a $900 budget and the $500 I'm getting from DAR, that'd be helpful too. Appreciate support and like the comments that we've been getting so far. And as soon as you got a bench, let me know and I'll pull my temporary bench out of there. But people are loving it as they.
So I'm on the board for Arasaka. I'm not promising any money, but if we can touch base, we might be able to use some funding to assist you with that.
I was wondering the same.
That'd be great. Yeah, the VAR said, no, you're on my next, effort was call, so.
One of the other biggest expenses, believe it or not, is a tiller. And that's the biggest expense on there. So,
Yeah, but if you have a
It's-
tiller I could borrow,
yeah,
let me know.
just have to till it up.
I may be able to help you with that, but I did have one question, so you're just doing it at ground level, it's not a raised bed or anything, everything's at ground level?
Yeah,
Right.
the cleanup removed all the decades of debris and branches and things like that. Essentially, I'm proposing a rectangular, perennial at the terminus of Harmony Street, at the water there. So it's a rectangular garden, not raised, it's just, level with the ground. If the city's got any extra bricks I can use for edging around it, that'd be great. And it's perennial Delaware native plants so that it would be in bloom year after year from June to September.
Gotcha.
That's lovely.
And I'm willing to donate towards the cause, I'll talk to you. Thank you.
I have an electronic tiller that we can touch base if you.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, it seems silly to have to buy one just for this little strip, but, thank you.
Any other comments, or is there a motion to approve this agreement?
I just want to, question for the council, this is very unusual situation, but I don't know. I'm looking around the room for whoever has authority or knowledge of this. Are we able to authorize up to $500 out of the same line? We just authorized to meet the gap. No, okay, yeah, that was my thought. Just, yeah, no more comments from me then.
I just wanted to thank Mr. O'Reilly, for doing that. And I look forward to, I know other people look forward to visiting this garden on the next garden tour, hopefully next year.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
Okay, and the second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you for your work.
Thank you, Max, for. Stop it. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for stop by.
I'm not shy.
No, that's what I like about you.
No shy. Motion, all in favor? No, meeting stands adjourned.